Hello guys! I did my research project in the issue of permanent residence and voting. The question that I used to do my research is, do permanent residents have the same right in voting as citizens do? And of course not. Permanent residents can't vote, but there can be a way for this issue to change. Throughout all the research I have done these past weeks, makes me comprehend why permanent residents can't vote and how can that change. I have come with some solutions, and also some states are starting to solve this issue. Here I have some of the main points I'm going to talk about in my presentation, which is discussion of the problem, arguments, evidence, solutions, and the conclusion. First, what is the process for an immigrant to become a permanent resident and then a citizen? Well, immigrants have to qualify for an immigrant category limited to family-based, employment-based, refugee or asylum-based, or specific categories. And there is a 5-year residency period required for naturalization. The application process can take several years. Why permanent residents can't vote? For several years, permanent residents have had this issue. Some years ago, non-citizens could vote, but so many immigrants were coming to this country, so government had to stop this issue, prohibiting non-citizens to have the right to vote. This issue has so many arguments towards letting permanent residents vote. There are some people who agree that permanent residents should have the right to vote, and also the opposite, that they should not have the right to vote. The opinion of those who agree say that they have the right to vote because they do the same thing as citizens. For example, they pay taxes, they own a house, and they are in the way of becoming citizens. Also, government policies affects them as well as citizens. And the opinions of those who disagree say that they should first become a U.S. citizen first in order to vote. Also because it is against the law. If a non-citizen votes without being a citizen, they could be fined, go to jail, or even be deported, which that is a big problem for permanent residents. So my opinion on this issue is that I think permanent residents should have the right to vote and be heard in elections because they already have gone through a process of becoming a permanent resident, knowing their rights, going through a legal process, and policies affects them as well as citizens. They should be granted the right to vote. My solution for this issue to be solved is that those who are permanent residents they can talk to a lawyer, and the lawyer can talk to Congress about doing a bill to give permanent residents the right to vote. It can take years, and it will take money of those who are working on this, but it would help. Some states have found a solution for giving permanent residents to vote, the right to vote in local elections. For example, Maryland, Massachusetts, Vermont, Minnesota, and Illinois. This is definitely a great solution, starting small, and it can change the view of the right to vote and permanent residents. Here I have some of the strongest sources of my project and what each writer talks about. My first source is from Howard, and Howard states that permanent residents do not have a direct effect on election outcomes through voting, even when the result of an election directly affects them, making them especially vulnerable to exploitation by the majority. My second source is from Voting Rights, and it states that the Constitution gave the states to decide who could vote. From states allowing permanent residents to vote, they took away that right for them. My third source is from Praise, and she states that at this point in time, there's about 8 million of permanent residents in the United States, which is a lot, and it could help for the country by improving the numbers of votes and for each permanent resident to have their own voice heard. She also states that they go through a legal process to become a permanent resident. And also she says that some states have included permanent residents to vote in local elections, which I already mentioned. They were Maryland, Massachusetts, Vermont, Minnesota, and Illinois. And with that, well, starting something small, it can help to change the view of the right to vote and permanent residence. And my last source is from Howard again, and he states that there have been some big states that want to expand voting rights to permanent residents in local elections. He reports that there is a bill in Washington, D.C. seeks to expand voting rights to permanent residents in local election. Also, that the New York City Council took up legislation to permit legal residents to vote in local elections. And because roughly 1 million permanent residents in New York City will become eligible to vote, this would significantly impact the political atmosphere of the city, giving non-citizens political representation denied to them for almost a century. In conclusion, finally, to answer the question, do permanent residents have the same right in voting as citizens do? Well, the answer is no, they do not have the right. They cannot vote unless they become a citizen. Can it be solved? Of course it can be solved. Several states have started to give permanent residents the right to vote in local elections, and this can help change this issue. Voting and permanent residents have several opinions as well as solutions, and if this changes, it can help permanent residents as well as the country. Thank you so much for hearing my presentation.